Studios in Johnston proper. You are live from the path.
I am a working man, I get things done. Work for the Holy Ghost, work for the Son. I am a working man, oh yes I am. I am a special agent of the Lamb. Now I'm gonna wear your covering.
You're listening to Live from the Path. We're coming to you from the Pathway Studios here in Johnston proper. It's delicious. It's delicious to be with you today.
Ugh. Why?
Delicious.
Okay, yummy.
No, worse.
Yeah, no, great.
I'm feeling yummy about it.
Gross.
All right, here's what we got going on the show this evening. So the first question is what kind of questions occur to a person who's having a Christian midlife crisis? So so not the. I think we've talked quite a bit of people who might have barriers to faith. Right? Like you might have a thing where you don't want to believe in Jesus at all.
Yeah.
Because of this question or that question. But like what are the types of things that show up? You go, yeah, Jesus, I'm in. And then you start walking it, reading you're reading your Bible, you're praying and all the stuff. And then you get a little bit of ways in and then you're like, oh no, I don't know. This feels maybe not as expected or maybe a little bit difficult to swallow.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying, Mike?
I got a couple thoughts. And some of these I think are as output of life experiences that you tend to not have until you have lived a little bit of life. And then I think some of it is going to come out of like a reading your Bible after a while and you got past the headlines and you started digging into paragraphs and you're like, look, dude, you're going to have to do something with number 17.
Yeah.
I mean, it goes down a little rough. And not so much because you're like, I can't take this in. But you start to think to yourself, if somebody asked me to explain this in a way that encapsulated a good, loving God that I know, I'm going to have a hard time.
Yeah.
Said kill the babies and the cow.
Yeah. I'd be
Right.
like it's, that might be, maybe that just shows my cards, but like I'm not, like in this room is generally Buva and Dan and Ben. And out of the four dudes in this room, I am the least scholarly Bible teacher in here. Usually most of my metaphors and things break down to some type of use of electricity or how a simple thing works,
right,
and how it reflects the gospel into the world, right? And so sometimes I think to myself, and I pray, Lord, just have them not ask me about anything in Deuteronomy, okay? Because to a Christian, I can definitely get there. But to a non-Christian, I'm like, I realize how you're going to take this in.
Oh yeah,
I can't make this a battery.
Yeah. Okay. Let's come back to that because I think that maybe is one of the good prodding questions, which is what do you know enough to go? I hope no one asks me about this.
Yeah.
Because those tend to be the things that you can push to the side because no one else is bringing them up to you. But you're like, boy, if really, I don't want to think about it, frankly, because if I'm really pressed,
yeah,
maybe I'm a little worried about what it means.
Maybe I don't have a good explanation for this, and like maybe I would have to wrestle with God about it too. You know?
Okay. All right. We'll pick that up. Also, there is there was an article in the Christian Post that said that more men are turning to the Bible across every generation, according to a study. So we're gonna walk through that. I guess I'm interested to see whether this is surprising to you.
Does it give generational information? Hold on. Special guest today, Simeon Clausen.
Hi, Simeon.
Howdy.
Okay, good.
Simeon, would you, like, just off that headline alone, would you feel that being reflected in current culture of your age group?
I would definitely say I have a lot of male Christian friends who are of God and who try to better themselves. And yeah.
Right on.
Definitely see that. Yeah.
Hey, there's hope in the world, boys.
Okay.
Don't ask me about Deuteronomy.
Deuteronomy.
I don't know why that happened the way it did. And then let's see. Oh, okay. I don't care about that. Okay, whatever. We got a couple other things we might hit, but I think that's what we got.
We got Dear Life from the Path.
We'll do some Dear Life from the Past. Hey, before I forget, I meant to do this last week, But you might remember a number of shows ago, I mentioned that both Mike and my daughters had written a book, like our oldest kids had written a book. And so I'm just reminding you to go pick this thing up. It's on Amazon. Go Amazon.com. Just do a search for 1,000 Balloons book. And just go pick it up. It's out there. It's prime shipping. You'll have it here in a couple of days, and it's delightful.
Here's the thing I'm going to tell you. I don't know if you would guess this about me, but I'm not an avid reader.
Yeah.
And of the books that I've read in the last 10 years, it's the best book that I've read.
I don't know. I wouldn't say that, but I do read a lot. It was pretty good, though.
Pretty good.
That's pretty good. Sorry, girls. All right. Anyway, go pick it up. It's 1,000 Balloons, and then hey, go leave a review for those ladies. They worked real hard on that thing, and I'm not just saying that as a dad and uncle. It was an excellent book, and I really do think you would enjoy it, and it would be good. You would enjoy the book, and it would be kind if you left a review.
You're going to fall in love with Den Loy. He's the best of us.
No, Teddy.
Whoa.
No.
Disagreement.
No. We'll fight about it out in the after show. Okay. All right. Anyway, let's real quick, let's talk about these fellas. It said, following years of declining Bible engagement in the U.S., nearly 10 million more Americans have engaged with the Bible this year compared to 2024. Across every generation, men have increased their engagement so much that the gap between the sexes has almost been erased, according to the first installment of the 2025 State of the Bible report from the American Bible Society. Let's see, the study, blah, 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 defines Bible users as individuals who engage with Scripture on their own at least wait a minute, at least 3 times a year.
Oh, what?
Oh, year. Yeah.
I thought you were going to say a week.
Outside the church service or mass.
Oh, boy.
Oh, no. This is the bar?
No. Okay, I'm going to tell you what happened. This is a Trump effect is what it is. This is a Trump effect. It's for people who, it's both sides of the aisle, really. It's people who don't support Trump, and Trump says something, and we're like, I'm going to show them the Bible doesn't say that, and so they break it out. And Trump be tweeting all the time, and so they're just, I bet 3 times a week or whatever, they're pulling it up going, stupid Christians. Trump don't agree with that. I think also people who support Trump are like, yeah, heck yeah, I wonder if Jesus actually says that. Well, and then they go check it out. And then I'm not sure they always come to the right conclusion on this particular thing. But I think Trump is driving the Bible usage one way or the other. That would be my guess.
3 times a year? This is all that we're expecting out of dudes?
That's wild.
Wow.
Ugh.
And that's from the Bible Society or whatever? They're calling that
Bible
engaged?
Society.
Yeah, the American Bible Society.
Really ramping up our Bible reading.
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
I wonder what the European Bible Society, so they got a higher standard because, like, we've really let go.
Don't you feel like people would tuck it up a little bit if you saw with a guy with an American Bible Society t-shirt coming at you asking you questions? You'd be like, yeah, I read it sometimes.
Yeah, 3 times a year, I could agree with that. Let's say, I'm like 2 funerals and a wedding.
Solid number.
Yeah. It says in 2025, the study finds that 110 million or 41% of American adults now qualify as Bible users, which is the highest total since our 2021 report. I see COVID took them out. Wait a minute.
Maybe
Hold
people
on.
are just better liars.
Yeah.
It's possible, but I mean, again, I want you to think about, when did Trump stop being the president? 2020, 2021, lowest Bible usage, and as soon as he kicks back in, and listen here, you got eye blinders to the world if you're like, Trump drives people to lovingly engage with the Scriptures. I don't think that's what's going on. I think they're proof texting him and getting back on the Twitter.
I'm trying to think of something else. What do I do in my life that I only do 3 times a year?
I know. That's...
And I'm opening up for the jokes there, but just answer this question first. I mean, what can I call myself? An engaged user, like the food chopper? I don't know. Like, I can't think of anything that I only do 3 times a year that I'm like, I am now professional.
Yeah. What?
I'm trying to think of that too. I can't. Yeah. It's.
I either do something a lot or I don't do it at all.
Yeah.
I can't think of anything that, like, this is my triannual.
What about like cleaning out your gutters? Would you be like, oh yeah, I'm a gutter man. I'm a regular gutter cleaner.
I don't know who we're fooling. I mean, I wait every 3rd year. Basically, it's a problem. When it's become a problem, then I will go up there and clean out the gutters.
Yeah.
I don't know if I pre-gutter.
Pre-gutter.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, this is weird. It's a weird bar.
Yeah, it is.
It says a breakdown of the numbers by generation shows millennials leading the way in Bible usage, and in every generation, men are using the Bible more. Only 3 in 10 millennials qualified as Bible users in 2024, but in 2025, that number jumped to almost 4 in 10. Oh my! This is what is this propaganda? This is ridiculous.
Wow. I think they were like, George, you can't write this. There's not really anything to celebrate. Oh, you watch me. I got this half written.
It was 3 in 10. It's now 4 in 10.
Yeah, but how much are they reading, George? 3 times a year. Like Christmas, Easter, and some baptismal.
Christians.
Okay, hold on. Here we go. Jennifer Holleran, president and CEO of the American Bible Society. This is in her basement. There's no way this is not in her basement. Said when the organization's research showed a resurgence in Bible sales in 2024.
These are bold words.
It signaled a renewed interest in the Word of God, but the latest data, she said, shows that this potential rebound may be taking root. The renewed interest in Bible, she believes, could be its growing presence in public discourse or general increase in people's search for happiness. With such wide access to Scripture in the U.S., what has changed substantially over the last 3 years? Like, the Bible's been available in mostly the same way. Now, we were talking maybe a little bit before the show, so like things like The Chosen. I think, and what's the things out? The King of Kings movie is out.
Yeah.
I think you are seeing it more saturate in some of the other media outlets, and so as that happens, maybe people are checking it out, reading it, following up, or something like that. I don't know.
It feels like a rubber band effect, right? Like people, like as a society, we get on this train. We're like, yes, more, yes, more, yes, more, and then it'll reach a point where they're like, that was too far. Right? This needs to start coming back a little bit, right? And I think like a lot of the Christian media has, like we've seen a resurgence for that because of this, right? Like we just kept getting more dark and more broken and more twisted stories and like the same old, and like people are like, yeah. And then like there's always like this weird breaking point. I'd be interested to see like you probably don't know what it is until 10 years down the road where you look back and go, it was finally this movie or this book or this conversation or like this topic amongst all of society where they're like, you know what? I've had enough. Yeah. I've had enough, right? Some of that actually, I think, like they were pointing back to this in a study a couple months ago where they're like, some of it was the dude swimmer in the ladies sports where they're like, you know what? That's enough. I'm done with this.
Yeah.
You know, and so like it changed like that point right there, like had a public discourse, like right, wrong, or indifferent where they're like, you know what? This has gotten out of hand behind my back. And so we're going to start pushing back, you know, to this thing. But like the media executive, you know, like thought process is like, we don't actually care what kind of content we're putting out. We just care that it sells to somebody. Yeah. You know, and right now, like we're on the downward slide of some of the broken and on the upward, you know, like resurgence of some of the more, I don't know, we want to say back to Christian basic stuff, but like, you know, like more wholesome entertainment that you're like, I just don't want to worry that I'm going to have some kind of political fight with my friends just for having watched a thing. Yeah. And like, I don't know, like most of the biblical content, like even if it's stories like from a Christian worldview, tend not to produce a bunch of that. They're like someone sacrificed in a way for somebody else. That's generally what Christian media is. Yeah. You know? And so it's a lot easier to take in. Like there's a lot more unity involved in it, you know, than it was just been such a divisive time, especially in our country over the last 10 years, you know, that like, I think people are just worn out. They're like, I just don't want to fight all the time about everything. Yeah.
Yeah. The world, what was it? The American Bible Society. We should. What would you call it, Dan? What would you call it if we had to start our own? Let's say you got to make up one for the basement here. What would you call our Bible Society?
Oh boy, I'd have to think about that a minute.
Okay. Okay.
Simeon, you got one?
The Gideons is taken.
The Gideons.
That's the thing. I'm thinking of all these that exist. I'm like, I can't use that. I can't use that.
I would go with Bibbidi.
Bibbidi.
Here's my question though. On this. Isn't this an organization that sells bulk Bibles? I mean, they're saying they're selling more Bibles. That probably means like some churches buying them or some, like we've always bought Bibles by the boxes and given them out. But I've actually buy less now because it's like they're sold digital. It's like, why spend money on like hundreds of dollars worth of books? We're going to say, hey, download this app. And you don't have to carry it around. It's with you.
Yeah. Okay. Hold on.
That's got, I mean, It's got to be hard to track all
Is
this
it?
stuff.
Hold on. The American Bible Society is a U.S.-based Christian nonprofit headquartered in Philadelphia as the American member organization of United Bible Societies. It supports global Bible translation, production, distribution, literacy, engagement ministry, and advocacy efforts. Founded by Joseph Hornblower in 1816. 1816. No doubt.
Hornblower, you've done it again.
Wow. Okay. Anyway, the Miss Halloran from her basement said that she pointed out that people must be going to Scripture to find hope because on the World Happiness Index in 2025, the United States was at its an all-time low.
Yeah.
But again, we're begging the order of which things are. That might be a good narrative. I'm not sure whether that's actually true or not. Whether people are reaching for the Scriptures for hope.
No. I think this article is pandering. It's offering a thing that's not quite true. Even if it's trending that direction, you came out of the gate with the celebration cake a little early, right? 3 times a year, with an uptick from 3 out of 10 to 4 out of 10. These are not celebratory numbers. If I was discipling a guy and this is what he reported to me happened to him last year, I'd be like, why don't you just take up knitting? You're not following Jesus at all 3 times a year. You can't. I mean, come on.
Yeah. I mean, you go to the dentist 3 times a year.
There we go.
And read the Scriptures.
I'm not a professional dentistry man just because I go to the dentist 3 times a year. Maybe I'll go a 4th.
Those are big numbers.
Whoa there, big cavity.
Big cavity.
Okay. All right. Anyway, there was also another article that says cliques and exclude. Oh shoot! Oh, it's gone. And cliques and exclusions were the reason that people weren't attending church.
Huh?
Because too many church cliques in there. Do you feel like it's hard, Dan? You kind of have this where people can kind of wander in, or you've invited them in and stuff. Do you feel like that's a barrier for people trying to engage? And what are familiar communities like? Obviously, you want people to have closeness.
Right.
Well, we're calling cliques. You could just go, look, people who are familiar with each other tend to talk with people who are familiar with each other. So does that feel like a legit barrier?
I'd say so. Yeah, we have battled that since the beginning because we obviously, I shouldn't say obviously, we have small groups like a lot of churches do. And so those groups tend to be in community together. They tend to have shared experiences. They like to talk about what we did last week and the casserole they ate on Thursday and whatever. And somebody else comes in that's brand new, doesn't share any of that. So it's not that people are being rude. I have seen people literally turn their backs to people that are walking by them, and they're not even consciously doing it. They're just talking to their friend that they're always hanging out with. So we have lots of little clusters, and I bet it would be hard to you have to be intentional about helping people break into groups. So
yeah,
I think that actually is legitimate.
Yeah. I could see that.
Simeon, do you ever feel like, because Simeon comes from his dad's pastor, and so do you ever feel like if a family comes in, when your dad was pastoring and there was a kid involved, they're like, Simeon, go talk to those kids. You got sent out to be the liaison to the new children?
Okay, I'm not going to lie. Our church was kind of dying, so we didn't have new people.
They never said, go talk to those old people.
If there were old people or new people that came, I did go and talk to them.
Yeah. Was it part of your job, or you just did it because you're friendly?
Probably a mix of both.
Yeah.
I probably wasn't told to do it, but I was told to do it. If you know what I'm saying?
I better be doing it.
I may have had a new family come to church a few years ago, and they had 2 boys and I had 2 girls, so we just all went out for supper together.
Yeah.
And then 2 of them actually got married several years later.
And Dan's master plan works.
I'm just saying it worked.
And Mr. Burns goes, excellent.
Nice, more kids.
I always wondered how to organically help that situation, because the truth is you want church to be a welcoming experience, right? But it's hard to create. You want friendships and relationships to be organic, and not forced. And honestly, I've visited quite a few churches, and I always think they come on a bit strong. But that's my taste, Yeah. And I already know Jesus too, so I'm not trying to solve my life's problems this Sunday. Some of it comes down and we'll get to this on the Midlife Christian Crisis thing, right? But some of it comes down to a perspective on we are so hungry that when people show up, we're like, yes, people are here. We've got to help them. We got to show them. We got to make them feel comfortable. We got to make them feel welcome. We got to do all the things. And that is true. Like, our job is to be hospitable and like offer, like, this community is open to anyone who is seeking to follow the steps of Jesus. And so, yeah, that's completely fine. But like, people, especially nowadays, like, they just smell the fourth wall's out. Like, is it the fifth wall or the fourth wall?
4. We're only in
One
4.
of the walls.
Yeah.
One of the walls is out, right? Like,
Yeah.
they know, they have such a keen sense of when they're being either advertised to or manipulated to think away. And even if you're genuine about it, it almost feels smarmy, you know? Smarmy. And so, like, I just think it's hard. Like, even people that are on the professional greeting ministries, you know, or even a bigger churches, I'll walk in there and be like, hi, how are you? How's your family? And who's this little guy? And all this stuff. I'm like, will you stop? Like, just let me go sit down. Let me have the pamphlet or the program or whatever we're doing. And like, just let me go sit down with my family.
Actually, it's funny. I wonder, I hadn't considered this before, but is it possible that some of the shifts towards like churches that have more like patterns and liturgical ways of going about something is it's actually easier to get in, because it's the difference between like having to make friends and acquaintances and get all your personal stuff and to meet all the people, or just hop on the San Francisco trolley. Like, the trolley goes where it goes. You get on and now you're a trolley person and you behave the way the other people in the trolley do. You're not required to make friends. So you're not required to like talk about all the stuff.
We talked about this a couple weeks ago when we were talking about like this generation and their bent towards anxiety.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to calling somebody, you know, like calling the dentist or calling the bank or whatever, because you're like, I just don't know what they're going to ask or how it's going to go or anything. And like some of the more liturgical churches, like, you're not on the hook for knowing the tunes.
Right.
You're not on the hook for like having to figure out when greeting time is or go like shake a bunch of people's hands. They're like, we're literally going to give you the program and just read these words when we read the words.
Yeah.
And so like there's less anxiety about it because you already know what's going to happen. So you don't feel like it's a bit of a surprise to you. And like, it's funny how that has crept in to where we would feel like, look, it's not so stuffy and, you know, like religious. And like, part of the trend is like people aren't looking necessarily for religion. They don't even know what they're looking for, but they are looking for a structure. Like, they want to feel like they are going a direction and they're doing it like they're supposed to be doing it. And when you give people all this freedom, like if you like, I found this true when I was talking to some fellas that I was half discipling or whatever, but I'm like, if you just say, hey, look, how's your Bible reading going? And don't tell them how often they should be reading it or what they should be reading or help them to figure that out, they'll just go,
Yeah, 3 times a year, I'm good.
Yeah, I'm in 3 times a year. The American Bible Society says I am kicking it. You know,
yeah.
But if you go, hey, man, you and I are going to read through John this week. I'll see you next Saturday. How did it go? You know, and so like if they know it's expected of them, then they will tend to rise to it. But like where we like as midlife Christians or whatever, you've been doing this for a while, you're like, I don't know, man. Like, I freeform my Bible reading quite a bit. I just kind of bounce around a little bit. And like, God can speak to me through any of these scriptures. I don't really care, you know, where like, I think a lot of the younger generation is like, they're begging for a structure that we don't want to give because we feel like it feels like religion.
Yeah.
And like, it's weird that we're like, hey, we should add some more of this in here. But really what you're doing is you're right sizing what religion is. You know, like you're putting religion in its own category, like James says what it is. And then we're talking about discipleship and what that looks like. It's like, hey, God's not mad at you if you overslept on Tuesday, but you and I are going to read through John. So tell me what's the holdup is. You know what I'm saying? We're doing this thing, you know? It's
funny to think about. Like, I feel like my wife has been trending Baptist for the last decade. And it's some of that. Like, this is not a critique of Jesus, of course, but like Jesus basically took a lot of the scaffolding down and said, look, I'm not going to tell you 10,000 ways to interact in 10,000 situations. Here are your principles. Go act in that way. And in some ways, I'd almost rather just sacrifice the lamb or whatever. Like, can can I just do that? Or like, can't I'd almost rather have the 10,000.
Give me some boxes to check.
Yeah. Right. Right. And it's not right. Like, obviously what Jesus has set up is the right way to do it. It's the only sustainable way to do it. But like, there is just something that goes, like, if there's almost a weight to feeling like you got to figure it out all the time and know what to do in what place. And if it's generational, my generation's not exempted from that in some ways.
Yeah.
And so like, I just want to feel like I did a good job following Jesus today. What are the things?
And those are some of the questions like you probably start to ask yourself too, is like, if I was reading the right passage in the Bible today, would God have spoke to me? Or if God is speaking to me, am I missing it because I'm doing X? Like, it's all these things that are up in the air, that we're on the hook for this, right? We're on the hook for like being people that disciple other people that go, hey man, actually, sometimes I don't know either. Like, I don't have a solid answer for you if God's speaking in the breeze today or he ain't, but I can tell you that like, he's not thwarted by your innocent attempt to read his word. He's not thwarted and kept from his purposes being done because your broken humanity, couldn't figure out, like, he threw a deer across the road with a sign that says, come help Brian at this address, right? And you happen to be looking to the left, looking at a hot air balloon you saw.
Right.
And God's like, dang it, I got the deer and everything.
I set everything up.
These are not surprises to him. And so, like, it's a misunderstanding of who God is and how he looks to interact with his people. But it doesn't stop folks, like, without an experience of walking with God, on what these things kind of look like. They're like, I've never read Isaiah. No wonder God never speaks to me. Well, that's not really how it works. I think you should read Isaiah, but I'm not saying that like you've missed out on the first 10 years of whatever God had for you because it's only in Isaiah 22.
It's funny you say that. I was actually thinking about Isaiah not 3 days ago. I thought I could withstand like questions from someone on like, what does this mean? Like, what is God getting at? And like broad narrative stuff almost anywhere in the Bible. It's like Ezekiel, Isaiah, where I am least confident. Where like if someone were to ask me a bunch of questions, I'm like, they could like, not like get me. I'm just saying like in general, I feel like I've spent time in a lot of different places, and Isaiah and Ezekiel in some ways still feels like a place where I am a risk to the gospel if I just go out flying what I think, because I've not really spent a significant amount of time studying there. I don't like that you said that, actually. Now I feel like a real Isaiah burden.
There goes the deer.
Okay, so actually, I think that's a pretty good transition then into the question of it doesn't have to be like midlife, but let's go with like what is a Christian midlife crisis? So like there's all kinds of questions, things that are barriers to people from getting into the faith. Like, hey, is God more objectionable? Does he even exist? Why do bad things happen? Like all this kind of big stuff that people are like, look, I'm not even going to entertain this. How can I trust this religion when there's 50 other religions out there aren't in some ways? Are you calling everybody else stupid or dumb or whatever? And so like these are barriers that keep people from like getting in at all. But like someone who says, yep, this hits me. I agree with this. I'm going to follow Jesus. And you start doing all the things. Like, what are the types of questions or circumstances or situations that occur to that person that become, they don't have to be like a total faith crisis, but it's the thing that goes, look, if I were to say everything was running smooth, I would be lying. These are the types of questions or feelings or things that may occur after you get into it a little bit.
Yeah, I think there's two probably major ones in my mind. And one is and it's an output of when like the weight of like a sinful, broken world actually ends up a little closer to home than you've been used to, right? Like if your Christian walk was praying for other people in the hospital or like praying for widows and orphans or being part of feeding the homeless. And like, these were all your things, Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden something happens in your life or something happens very close to you where you're like, basically the output question is, do I really believe God to be good? Mm-hmm. Because in this circumstance, I don't see it. And like, even through other people's suffering, like you were willing to, I wouldn't say logistically walk through it, but you were willing to go, God is still good. This can be redeemed. Or like even on the bigger stuff, you're like on the whole of eternity, like this is an earthly problem. you know, and like it was easy, like because you were reaffirming faith to other people, and you were reminding them of the good news within the gospel and of the entire of the Bible, what God's character is. But like there almost always comes an event that hits just close enough to home, or maybe bombs the place, that you're like, I don't see any good reason to have allowed blah. You know, whether it be a sickness or whether it be a change of attitude with people around you or whatever. And it persists.
Yeah.
And it doesn't go away, and it's not redeemed quickly. And I think it's the stretch in there somewhere where you're like, I actually do believe God to be good, but like if you asked me today, do I feel that way? I don't know. Like he allowed this bad thing to happen. People who have like horrible crimes committed against them, and you're like, what possible glory could God be getting from allowing the thing, right? Yeah. And like I think you can find it once again, like in your younger days, and you're like, I don't know what it is, but God will. And this is, and like just you have to have faith in that. Well, so that you start to, you know, you live a life, and like you follow Jesus and all as well, and then you're like, now that I think about it, maybe the last 5 things that I thought I can't, because you just start to see more of the broken world pile up, you know, and then you're like, now actually the last 10 years have I seen God do great things? I have. Yeah, I can agree to that. But if you were to ask me like the last 5 examples, I'd be like, yeah, I believe he will do good things, but I could see it from your perspective on how you could be like, hey man, that's hard to see where he's getting glory and you're getting joy, if that's the thing. And so like, I've seen that. In fact, I've lived that. Yeah. Right? So like, I could see that one.
It is easier to declare God the light in the shadow when you're not in a cave at the time.
Yes.
Yeah.
It is a much different situation to be in that cave for 2 days and then 2 months and then 2 years, and then still be the guy who looks just a little bit nuts because he's sitting in the cave going, no, the light will shine.
Yes.
Because from an exterior perspective and your own lived experience, it ain't shining. Mm-hmm. And so it's what common deceit looks like. Yeah. Right? Like there's an optimism that holds God is good and God will redeem. But like and this maybe snuggles up to that one, because I think there becomes a reality of some of the I don't want to diminish them, because like ultimately like the things that we say as Christians, like they are true. They're just not always true.
Yeah.
Because people don't have to do things. And so we're like, hey, God will redeem this situation. God can redeem this situation. God may want that situation redeemed, and people can refuse it.
Yeah.
And people can be disobedient, and people can go, I just don't want what God is offering. And when you have to, it's hard when you're sitting in the cave. It's double hard when you're watching people you care about not only live in the cave, but refuse. Like they don't want to get out of it. They like it in there, or at least they think they like it in there. And so that is earth shaking, because, and I think it puts the things that like, it's not a sacrifice to believe it in your mind. It's a sacrifice to walk through it with your feet. And I think that is difficult because you are not, it's one, I think it's easy to look at scripture. Like it's easy to try to, let me say this differently. It's hard thinking about, the stories that we read in the scriptures, like how much of that is for everybody and how much of that actually applies specifically to my circumstance. Because like I can point to scripture and see, look, God stepped in, God kept a long, faithful promise. That is his nature and character. I can also look in scriptures and go, look, God told people to repent and they refused to do that. And I don't know which situation I'm walking in. And I don't know whether to walk in hope because God can do a thing, but people could just not decide to do it. And so I think there is a harshness to our earthly reality that doesn't take away from God's goodness, but like you still have to live in that. And I think there is a crisis in there because it causes you to really beat up a bit. Which of the promises of God, like, can I grab a hold of and actually say for certain
that they're yours?
That they belong to me in this situation. And we do that a lot. Like as an encouragement to people who are in rough situations, we go, oh, Like, look at this scenario in the scriptures. God totally can do this. God did heal this person. God did bring the prodigal son to return. God, blah, blah, blah. Like you can, and these are all true things, but they're not always true. They don't always happen like that. Mm-hmm. And so I think there is a reckoning to a certain extent that platitudes, things that we say to try to encourage people are not lies, and they're actually not platitudes, but there is a reckoning that they don't always actually happen that way, not because God doesn't want it, but because he continues to give people the freedom to not accept it. And I think it's hard to live through, even if it doesn't actually diminish God's promises. I think that is definitely a point of crisis, to figure out how do I continue to think of God? What do I think of God in this reality that all the things that could be true aren't forced to be true?
Yeah. Dan, you probably watched a lot of people walk through that, yeah?
Yeah, sure. A lot of it is, encouraging their sometimes faith is I think of Stephen. He's in this dark moment. He's being stoned to death. He's going to die. He's this guy who's been acknowledged as full of the Spirit, that's a teacher, that's active in the New Testament kingdom, church. And then he's sitting there about ready to die, like that's a pretty dark day. But even in the darkness, at some point there, God reveals himself to him, and he's like, it's you're going to die. Yep, you're going to die. You're going down. But he was okay with it. And I guess I've encouraged people, like, I don't know when God's going to reveal himself to you, but he will. You keep believing, keep your faith, keep forging forward. And maybe you won't even see it. Maybe there won't be, the moment where you're like, oh, I see Jesus sitting at the right hand of the Father. But everything we believe is he's there. It's a hard thing to say when they're in darkness, but that's all I can think of.
Yeah. I mean, see, now that part, here's the thing that feels real easy to me. Like, if I had a confidence that, like, I don't know how God would do it, but he just goes, Ben, look, someone's going to come here in about 5 minutes and he's going to shoot you and you're going to die. Mm-hmm. And it's fine. Because it's like, well, whatever you did to cause this, it was righteous, and don't worry about it. Mm-hmm. Like, no problem at all. I got no issue with that.
Yep.
But if I'm standing there and people are like pelting me with stones, and I'm like, I don't know, man, did I walk out on this limb on my own? Like, are we sure that God was like, this was about this? Because, like, I could just have come up with this thing, and I'm getting pelted, and I'm going to die for no reason. Like,
I think the Holy Spirit, when you're at that point, I guess I've seen it in so many people's lives that there's a peace that comes with it that I can only explain. It has to be the Holy Spirit. It can't be just like, I really believe this is going to be okay. It's like, no, you're dying. But there's this extra faith, there's extra gift, some confidence, but I don't know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
That comes from the Spirit. It just says, I got you, and we don't need that every day, every moment. So that's why we don't sit around thinking, like you and I can say out loud, we're dying, we're good,
Yeah.
But to really face it, you got 6 weeks, you got cancer.
Yeah.
Some people hear that and they're like, all right, let's get this going.
Yep.
Yeah.
And some people are crushed.
Yep.
And it's a level of faith in there. And hopefully, God develops that faith if there are people who believe in him to be stronger through this. I've seen it so many times. Rarely have I seen an angry Christian dying of cancer.
Yeah,
I can't think of any, but they might be out there. But
now you did. Was it a hospice chaplain or just in like
a hospice chaplain?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So like I remember something that you had said this. I think like 15 years ago, you had said people die the way they live.
Yeah, exactly.
And so would you say that you noticed a difference between the level of peace between followers of Jesus and non-followers of Jesus in those situations?
The angry people were people who didn't have faith.
Yeah.
And then they were angry at God. I thought I could go as a chaplain and say, hey, let me tell you how you can face eternity.
Yeah.
In a win.
Yeah.
They're like, no, God did this to me.
Right.
Don't talk to me about this. And I'm like, oh, dude, you knew you were going to die someday. I mean, you might have thought it was going to be 20 years from now, but it was still going to happen.
Dan's hospice approach is, you dummy.
I mean, I didn't say that obviously, but I was like, that's what was shocking to me, how many people would go to their grave in anger, who did not have faith and would not turn to faith.
Yeah.
And maybe that was a deficiency on my part, not communicating well. That's quite possible.
But it's not but the thing, I think the point here is that like this peace in the presence of what is like surefire problems going on around you. It's not like everybody near death that's got it in the sight, just like the body psychologically takes over and like gives you peace. Like there were people fighting it tooth and nail, because they don't, without a faith in Jesus, that you've like in your experience has been markedly different than people of Jesus walking into that type of thing. Yeah.
I mean, believers genuinely feel they're going home.
Yeah.
Like, okay, this is the start.
Yeah.
This is the start of something good, as opposed to the end of everything that's ever been.
Yeah.
Simeon, have you had folks like approach you with like some pretty heavy conversations with stuff around that?
Oh yeah, definitely. And I mean, I'm thinking to some of my friends at my old school who are just like, what am I going to do? I'm going through so much and I feel like I don't have a God who truly cares about me because all of this bad stuff is happening around me. And it sounds stupid, but this response I always go to is, if they actually know Jesus and read the Bible and such, is Job.
Yeah.
Like, I just think of Job and I read it and I'm just like, he had friends and so many people who doubted him, and he even started to doubt himself at some points, yet in the end, God made everything okay.
God showed up and says, here's the deal.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
He lost his wife and kids and everything, but still.
Except his wife.
Oh, well.
I feel like Satan left her around just to poke him in the side. She was a drippy fuck.
Actually, Job's a good point, because actually I find Job to be a crisis type of, like a midlife Christian crisis situation. Because like at some point you go, oh, good, except for like, hey, God gives him more kids later on, and you're like, what?
Right.
My first kids are dead.
Yeah,
like,
all is supposed to be well now.
Right. And
I really liked John.
and I think that's a good, like there's probably a category of things where when you embrace following Jesus, like there's something about the promises that you're like, I'll take whatever comes with it. Yeah. Like I trust this. And then you start reading stuff and you're like, and you start seeing things where like you've heard people critique Christianity, and then you read something kind of out of pocket and you're like, well, actually, that does seem pretty rough there. I don't.
That makes sense.
And it doesn't take like Paul takes some getting over. He takes some getting used to. It requires kind of like, I think you're going to hit a spot where you start to doubt all the core things you just took as fact, because you start coming across things that cause you to think about it, and you should. Like, that is never a bad thing. I think you should be reading your scriptures, and you should be coming across things and going, hey, like, how am I supposed to think about that? Because like this doesn't fit with what I believe to be true, and either it refines you or you got to figure out like what are they actually getting at. And so I actually think that's a very healthy thing. But like I do think, and you get this with people who are like in church as children or whatever, and they're like, oh yeah, I grew up in the faith, blah, blah, blah. And then this happens when they get to college, or, I mean, now it's like stuff is shifting into later high school years, is you get people start challenge you on that stuff, and you figure out that like, you actually don't really have much of a foundation. They're going to accuse the scriptures or of God of 5 things, and you're going to go check it out to go to refute them, and they're going to be right. The thing that they said, just like, well, God had women and children killed. You're like, nah, come on.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, like on multiple occasions. And so, like, I think those things they can be worked through. I believe God is still good. We're still in this room because we believe those things. Yeah. But, like, I do think too many Genesis rainbows and Moses staves through our childhood experiences set us up to end up with a crisis where people are accusing God and the scriptures of representing a situation, and they were right. And the minute they're right, like, that's the type of thing that can throw people off. And we have seen this. Like, we've seen people go, you go to college, or you start going to a different church, different teacher or whatever. And like, it doesn't take much to just like slingshot off the rails. because you just weren't grounded particularly well. And those are less crises of the faith. Like those become bails. Like people just bail from, because like once you crack the facade, this is why I'm always like hyper cautious of how people take in Paul, and especially like Paul's view on women, is because if you get that wrong, or if you go, he's just Paul. Well, now you just said, well, then the scriptures can't be entirely trusted. Yeah. Or things change throughout the societies. And so like God's word doesn't hold. And now it becomes super subjective as to what I think should hold and not hold. And then it won't take you but 5 years to have chucked most of it.
Yeah.
And so like, I'm not cautious about defending Paul because, I am, just so you read your Bibles well. I think Paul can be understood. But like, it's because once you bail on something like that and you start jacking with translations of certain words, like you just, like that roller coaster go wherever you want to take it, and you're no longer following God, you're following yourself. And so I think that is also kind of a crisis deal when like you do the things that that the faith calls you to do, and it can lead you to a point to go, look, either I'm not doing this right or God isn't here.
Yeah. I went to a Ren Collective concert last night, and they sing a song called Weep With Me, and it's really good. But like the original lyric was, there's a part in the song where he says, you know I believe, help my unbelief, right? And it's a prayer to God. You know I believe, help my unbelief. Yep. And he changed the lyric, and like I noticed it because like I was listening to the song, and he changed the lyric to, you know I can't leave, help my unbelief. And I thought, what a great change, right? Because it's basically saying the same things that the disciples said. Is like, where else are we gonna go? Yeah. Like, you know I can't leave, but I'm not functioning well here. You have to help my unbelief, you know? And I thought, I've loved that song for a really long time, and like he just happened to sing it live last night, and he changed that lyric, and I thought, that is the best lyrical change I've heard in 10 years. Like, it could not have like smacked me over the head any more than it did. Because like, what an accurate feeling to like the exact thing that we're talking about, right? Like, you know I can't leave, God. You know I'm not going anywhere, but I help my unbelief. You know, and I'm like, that it surmises that entire question like to exactly what it needed to be. Yeah. And so, but I think the second thing on that same train that I think tends to lead to this stuff is it starts to be like you're actually starting to read your Bible. There's some rough stuff in there, like and like, well, I say rough because it's depending on who you're presenting it to or who you're talking to, or it's just within your own heart. Like, you got to get through some slavery things there. You have to get through some societal things. You have to get through some judgment of God things that you need to reckon with his heart about and reckon with your own without maybe all the information you wish you had. Right? Like, you don't hold every card that he holds. You don't see it in its entirety. You don't see, like, even a lot of the Old Testament stuff, like, it glosses over the level of evil that was occurring and just says they were against God or something, or like, you know, they brought due penalty among themselves, or, you know, they did, like, the society was evil. You know, and you're like, well, evil. I mean, you know, that sounds like a guy wearing a stupid goat mask acting like a doofus. Yeah. You know, like, we don't even, especially our modern society, don't even take the word evil incorrectly, you know? So we just have like this cartoonish characterization of it when really they're literally killing children, raping women, like acting horrifically. And God's like, this has to stop. And like, but we wouldn't read it that way. Just blank off the page at knowing not anything about context or, you know, Hebrew or whatever, right? And so like, I'll still get to parts of that in my Bible where I'm like, I hope nobody asks me to try to defend this, because I know it can be defended. I know that I can't do it, you know, like, because it puts a little pit in my stomach too, you know? And so like, I think that's the second one that starts to produce a little bit of a crisis of faith, right? Like, if you actually start reading your Bible, there should be some wrestling. Like, you're going to feel a tension and a wrestling. And even some of Paul's stuff, right? You're like, man, I know a lot of gifted gals, and like, to walk up to them that are sure that God put them in this exact position. And I'm the guy that's like, you know, depending on what side of the fence you come in on, like, some of this stuff is hard, you know? And so like, I think that starts to come up where you got the highlights for the first 10 years of your faith, and you could probably bring 1,000 people to Jesus just through reading the book of John, you know, and that's enough for you. And that's cool. And I think actually that's pretty righteous. but like eventually you're going to have to get into the crazy Revelation people, and you're going to have to talk about Deuteronomy, and you're going to have to get through Numbers, and you're going to have to do with like wiping out entire citizenry on their way into the promised land, and going, well, there had to have been a shopkeep somewhere in the Amalekites that wasn't hurting nobody, and he got torn up in the exact same thing, and like those are the things that you're going to be like, I got to figure out how to trust God in this too. So that's the second thing that I think I've seen most is people who actually have been in the faith a while, and they were running off David stories for most of their existence, and then all of a sudden they're like, yeah, the Amalekites though. Yep. Yeah.
I would say, just by experience, a lot of the midlife faith crises don't have anything to do with God's truths. They have to do with people losing faith in God because of their expectations of people around them.
Oh yeah.
And so I've seen people walked away from the church because of this stupid COVID stuff. Hey, churches should meet. If you don't do it, you're of the devil. Oh, like people didn't wear a mask, and so you were of the devil. Like just stupid behavior. Things that didn't have anything to do with following Jesus, and like hyper stuff. And like they built up their own castles about what it looks like to follow Jesus in any given fallible human situation. And then when the people didn't align with them, they took it as, well, that the people of Jesus, like, because, maybe half the people of Jesus didn't want to wear the mask or wore the mask, and you thought they were dumb or something. And you're like, well, then you're stupid. And then you start like God's truths in their lives and that they would believe and espouse start to become shaded because of what you thought about the person who said it. Or like, how could I be in alignment with these people? How can I believe the same thing this class of idiots believes? Yeah. And so like, it didn't have anything to do with like whether God's truths are there or not. And like, it's been so crazy to me to watch people like walk away from the faith with no justification at all, with having to reckon with, is what God said true? There's just some sort of event or something that occurred, and they're like, oh yeah, I don't believe that anymore, because it doesn't align with what I think here. And these are people where like God has acted in their lives. They've seen it. They've seen a healing. They've seen miracles. They've seen stability of marriages and just things that like the way it's supposed to work is working. And all of that stuff is on the table in front of them. And they go, yeah, but those people at that church held service when the governor said we shouldn't. And so they're dumb, and I can't be associated with dumbness. And so now I don't follow this anymore. Like, it lacks logic. It lacks like any sense of whether there is a God or not a God is of importance. It's not just a thing that you kind of pick up and you either carry the card or you don't. And so it's a crisis of faith. But it doesn't have anything to do with the claims of the faith. It just has to do with some other champion cause that you got involved with, and just you don't want to be associated with people who you think are idiots.
Yeah, I find that's true too. Actually, it's when Christianity starts getting paired up with like Jesus plus stuff. Like as soon as it has to be Christianity plus, First Amendment gun laws, you're like, hold on a minute now. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think these can weave a little bit, but like overall, they don't travel as group. You know what I'm saying? Jesus travels. And then these other things tend to be like shadows of him or reflections of him in some way, but they're not him, And so like I've seen that a ton too, where people get like, they've intermingled some of their stuff, right? Instead of Jesus being the number one thing and his truths being the truths, they're like, I'm also a master gardener. So now I do gardens for Jesus. And now the whole life is about growing carrots on behalf of the disciples and whatever, and you're like, this is too far, man, right? Like the Jesus is the thing, and you've said everybody has to love gardening and Jesus, otherwise you won't have anything to do with them. Well, that's dumb.
Yeah, you find that in the like, hey, I'm supposed to be I feel like God has me, I don't know, raising my family without any refined sugars. Okay, I don't know if that is, but like, it doesn't make you a better Christian because of that thing. No. I'm not sure whether God did or did not tell you to do that thing, and maybe it might be healthier for people. But like, to your point, I like people get stuff bundled together and then they start walking away from Jesus as if Jesus was holding the stevia. Yeah, personally, so I actually see that. I see that a lot. It's probably a sign of like there's to the back to the lyric thing. Like I might have to go look. I might have a pretty strong connection to the God and guns people. Like we agree on all kinds of things. Like in the absence of the First Amendment, Jesus is still good. In the absence of the Second Amendment, Jesus is still good and king. But like, I'm not going to bail from the faith just because some guy has got his stuff banged up. Yeah, I'm gonna have to talk to him, and I'm gonna have to love that guy because I think he's got messed up, and maybe I've got something that I've added that like that's the lens of which I go, yeah, but how could you Theraflus came from Baal, and so
it was made by the Baal. It was made by the Lord, frankincense oil.
So like I just and actually that is the risk, and this is on the side of like when people start to mix like when you get politics mixed, or you mix like patriotism or stuff like that, is that people go the opposite way with it. Well, like that doesn't represent me. It's a Jesus plus. And so like I completely condemn and separate from this person. Well, I mean, maybe they got a little bit jacked up, but like if they're still followers of Jesus, like I don't abandon them either. And so I do think that is common. It's a common thing where like it becomes at some point or another, you feel like you're solid enough in your faith to walk away from it when someone has co-opted it. But like you walked away from the wrong thing, as opposed to like bailing on COVID mandates and gun laws, you bailed on Jesus. Yeah. And that was dumb.
Yeah.
That was dumb thing to do.
Anyway, you've been listening to Life from the Path.
Yeah. I don't know, Dan, like, you've had many a moon as a man handling people with faith crises. Which ones did we not cover?
Are you calling me old?
I said many a moon. Okay. That could be just a year or two.
I am with long tooth. I tell you what, I've always had a pretty strong faith, even as a child. Once I came to faith, it's just I just believe. I just believe in God. I believe if He says something, I say, okay, we're going to do it. Yep. Now it may take a while to get to my heart, but at least my intellect, like this is what God says. So there's no pushing back. I don't fight. I don't bargain. Yep. I just like, that's what He says. That's what I do. So I take Him for who He says He is. I take judgment, heaven, hell, all the stuff, right? All the stuff. Yep. As a Christian pastor, that's why I'm into pastoring. I gave my whole life to it, right? Everything, it's all yours, God. As a young man, I said that. I've gone to, I preached funerals of Christian people when you'd go through the whole process and you do the dinner and you eat the potato salad and you go home and I'd get in the car and on the way home I think to myself, man, I'm almost jealous. I mean, like I just like, man, they're lucky, Mm-hmm. So it's like it's so deep in me. There are times, however, there's so many other voices out there. You got a Muslim that might strap a bomb on his body, right, in the name of his faith, go kill other people, thinking that will usher him into heaven, give him a higher chance, right, into heaven. There's all these world religions that believe just as enthusiastically in their God. And so once in a while, that thought will go through my mind. Well, what if we're not the only one? Mm-hmm. What if they're right? What if they're all the things? What if we're all on different roads going to the same place? And some of the stuff that you hear, the philosophies you hear, and so periodically that will go through my mind. I mean, when I say periodically, every few years, like, man, what if?
Would you say 3 times a year?
Or Dan's a professional Muslim sympathizer.
What if I get that cancer? Diagnosis, and all of a sudden I'm like, oh no, I don't know if I believe this. That fear will go through my head.
Right.
But I always go back to, actually this time of year with Easter and everything, you start studying things like the resurrection. You just get into the scripture, and I think I've just become more confident again. Mm-hmm. But it's like you go through a mini little crisis once in a while of like, I mean, I tell people I believe this with all my heart. I've taught it with all my heart. I've ushered people into their final breath with this. What if I don't believe it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I always go back to like, of course I do. There's too much evidence.
Yeah.
There's too much evidence. And I'm not my personality type. I can't tell you the evidence. Kind of like you. I'm like, I studied it before, so it's confident. But I can't just recess it in my head like, oh yeah, well, because that the thing. I have to look it up again.
The Shroud of Turin.
But
Catholicism.
then I get through that. But that's probably been the only times in my life I like, if I have any crisis.
Yeah.
And it's not like a crisis like I'm going to leave the faith. It's just like, is it real?
Yeah.
For real?
Wow, yeah.
I mean,
Yep.
And they're like, okay, yeah, it is.
Yeah. I would say, actually, I think that the example of the Muslim guy is a good one, because the places where I've had the dips, I will say, are always in relation to sympathy with people. Mm-hmm. So like this happens with like think about gay marriage or something like that. Mm-hmm. Like are there people who like just love each other, like they've got a strong feeling or a love for each other, and they happen to be a couple of dudes, and like from a political perspective, I can just give a crap. I don't care. And so, but like. And I'm like, I don't know. Like, of all the things everybody can look at a starving child and go,
that's wrong.
No, this is wrong.
Yeah.
And then you look at two dudes hugging in the middle of a garden somewhere, and you're like, ah. And so, but like,
I've never gone,
Humbug.
Earl. And so like it's things like that, because like I can look at people and go like, I care about people. Like in general, like these are just the same thing with like I know people of other faiths, and like they're not like harsh people. They're not mean. They're not kicking dogs down the sidewalk.
We don't want them to go to hell. We're not wishing for their failure.
Yeah.
Right.
And they're also not categorically like cartoon evil.
Yeah, exactly.
No, like parts of Christianity will sell them. They're like, if they're not following Jesus, they're like now like the worst people ever. They're murdering everybody. They spit on their barista. They're like the worst ever. And you're like, I don't know. They seem nice.
Right. And I think actually that's that's a maturing of your faith, to recognize that like whatever it is you might look around and go, oh, those people are definitely separated from Jesus. They are a mirror to you in whatever way it is. Like someone's got whatever compulsion I may have that I have to restrict or pray in my mind or try to keep protection from. Like other people don't draw the barrier. Like there's people who will look at porn 3 times a week because they don't have any moral ground that goes, you shouldn't. Mm-hmm. And so they're like, why not? Like, why wouldn't I? What do you care?
Yeah.
And so, and it's I have a restriction on it because Jesus tells me the purity of my mind and my thoughts and the love for my wife says this is not for me. I don't get to do that, even though like I'm built to want to go look at naked ladies. It's like because God put that in me, so to find a wife and to enjoy her. And so it's that kind of stuff where like sympathy for people and try and reconciling, like where you're not talking Christians good, other people bad, everybody falls short.
Yeah.
How many and have we all acclimated to the reality of Jesus? If Jesus is who he says he is, who I'm described in the scriptures is true, then I would be a fool not to try to align my life with whatever is how he designed it. And so I think like it's not a crisis of faith so much is that I hate what it feels like to hear people who are not following Jesus describe Jesus through the eyes of someone who they think hates them.
Yeah.
And I hate that and I hate it because it's wrong. Like I know it's wrong. We've met Jesus in this room. Like I know, I'm like, it's kind of like someone who just described your best friend and like just made him out to be a total ass. And you're like, no, he's not. Why are we saying these types of things? It doesn't mean that doesn't mean people's lives don't need to change. It doesn't mean my life does not continue to have to change to line with what God's good design is. But it's those types of things that give me pause, not because I don't trust what God says was true and good. It's because I think in the right balance, or not the right balance, God has not given us the ability nor the responsibility of the judgment. You guys have heard me say this before. It's because we can't handle it. Humans cannot handle the judging thing. We're just too much going on. We don't have the ability to sort it out. We're biased. But we do have one key responsibility, which is to reflect the light of Jesus into the world, reality and truth of Jesus into the world. And God looks at everybody and goes, yes, I want you to be with me. And so that is how I look at everybody. That's how I'm built to look at everybody. Yeah. And so the faith crisis there isn't that I'm about to bail from Jesus, but like it just I feel so disassociated with some of the ways that people describe Jesus who I think are not following him, that it gives me pause and go like, I don't know how to approach this differently. And I don't want to be associated in some ways, back to our other conversation, with people who've made folks feel like that, even though they do need a reconciliation from Jesus. And there may be things like when I start following Jesus, I can't go, well, but it's in me to look at porn 3 times a week. I have to stop. And like, if there's something where God says my design is that like these 2 folks are to be together, these types of folks are not, like, I have to trust God's design. If I trusted everything up to that point, why would I think that I'm going to think of this thing better here? Then, and I understand there's feelings associated with it, and there's relationships associated with it, and there's like life structures and like all kinds of things. And so I have a sympathy towards that. It's not easy to unwind something that otherwise feels like it's right. Yeah. And so anyway, those would be the parts where like it gets dippy for me, because I don't ever mistrust God in those things. I agree with him. But I love people, I think, like he loves people. And so I have a sympathy toward that. And like, do I want to see them harmed? Do I want to see them feel like they're separating from what feels like loving, close relationships? Or even some of the like, here's how I feel like I am. Like I feel like this gender or this identity or something like that. And like, boy, I got a lot of sympathy for what feels like confusion in your mind and in your heart, and how people feel like they're reacting to that type of thing, or like what type of information is coming from people who follow Jesus sometimes about that. I do think God made you good on your own, and I do think you will be the most healthy when you align with his design for you, and it includes a reconciliation between your mind and your parts. And so like I think all that's true, but just maybe it's just reflecting some of that back in some folks with those situations, and how they feel about what Jesus looks like to them. I don't like that. And some of it's they're just going to think that, because if God tries to change you and you don't want to change, you're going to have a negative reaction to it and say, Jesus sucks. He's trying to make me do a thing I don't want to do. Yep. Fair. But sometimes we're also not handling it in the way, like acting like Jesus. He wants them to change, but he actually still loves them, even as they're in the process of either doing it or not doing it. And so I don't know. Maybe that was a lot of rambling, but those are my dips, I think, is around sympathy and genuine care about people and how they think about Jesus in reaction to how they're being treated.
Would you put your dips in about the same category, Simeon?
Like, can you expand on that? What do you mean by that?
So like we were just talking about like stuff that brings you to a little bit of a crisis of faith every once in a while, like stuff that you're trying to reckon together and like tends to give you pause. Okay. Just to have to rethink back through. Do you have any of those?
Yeah, I think one of my biggest ones that I come to a lot is what made God. And I know that God is and always has been, but still I'm like, my mind just can't process that. It's like, it's always has and he always will be. It's just a thing that's like, that just doesn't.
Because you can't ever have an answer to that question. Yeah. Or at least you won't, by the time you get one, there'll be no one to represent it to, because everybody else gets it too. You know, God's like, let me tell you something. And you're like, tell me. Yeah, but I can't go across the chasm and tell anybody. Like, I feel like I've been stuck on that for a couple of days before, where I thought, I mean, it has to have a beginning, doesn't it? I don't, how can I even try? You know what I'm saying? Like, how can I even explain a thing? Yeah. I think that's a solid one.
You know what's funny is that the most common scientific consensus is that things don't have to have a beginning. Right? Like, so a lot of times this, like, part of that rub is like, I mean, as we keep doing experiments and stuff, like, it feels like we kind of got the world understood. Like, we kind of get how it works. Yeah, there's some anomalies here and there, but like, for the most part, when we say the moon's going to show up in a certain place 18 days from now, it'll be there. Yeah. Right? And so you're like, these are all smart people, and they also go, if they've seen all the things that maybe I've not seen, the microorganisms and the plasma.
Yeah, they put stuff in the boson.
Yeah, right. They're running hydrocolliders, and you're like, those people are super smart, and like a lot of them have come to the conclusion that there is no God. And like, here am I, dude who doesn't know a lot of that stuff, going, well, I think there's probably a Lord.
That's all just wrong.
Yeah. And here's the thing, is like following Jesus like comes with a call to humility, and it feels a little bit arrogant to go, well, I could think but it's not your belief. It's because God's telling you that's what it is. But the point being, though, is like what feels borderline superstitious is to go, you believe in a God that has no beginning at all. And it like has like always been, and then has like constructed all these things around you, all its complication and all its interaction and stuff. And you're like, oh, I guess that does seem kind of out there. But the most prime competing scientific theory is, yeah, something came from nothing.
Yeah.
And it got all the way together and it all kind of works together. So it's basically the same premise that we're dealing with here. And so whatever wild thing you believe, most scientists also believe. They just wouldn't blame it on God.
Yeah, that's true. They basically, they're like, it was dark antimatter. And then like, well, where'd that come from?
Yep.
Yeah.
We don't know yet.
It's hard for us to think of ourselves as being like just this sophisticated ant farm, and there's someone outside of us observing the whole thing and creating it all and moving things, and so it's hard to comprehend this outside force, that did not have a beginning, and so we struggle with that some.
Yeah.
And you're right. Science is they're on the exact same train. They're just they don't want to give responsibility to somebody.
Yeah.
They're just like, it just happened.
Which I think is even harder to believe.
I
think
agree.
it's harder to be an atheist than it is to be a Christian.
I think that's 10 times true. What was that? Somebody always gave a classic example. It's like, basically, it's like the way that the most competing scientific theory is, you had a box full of airplane parts, and then you threw it down from a mile up, and then when it landed on the ground, it was a plane. And you're like, that's even more than they're currently running on, because the parts for the plane were already in there, right? Yeah. Like they were already designed to be the left rudder. Like there's a left rudder in there. Yeah. Not it was falling on its way down and it was a rock and it decided to turn itself into the left rudder for an ambition that a rock doesn't normally have.
Yeah.
They're probably honest that they don't have a problem with God as much as they have a problem with Christians that you were talking about.
Yeah.
Is because people like me ignorantly say, well, I just believe it.
Right?
You're all wrong. I just believe what God,
Yeah.
And they're like, well, that's based on nothing. That's just, you're just a fool. And
yeah.
Yes, I am.
Yes, I am.
And I'll go to heaven.
It's, and maybe there's parts of me like, I'll read some sort of, saying it's a science article makes me look like a real English major, but information like that, like there's a discovery about something or other, and that people talking about how old things are around you, and they're like, I mean, how can I continue to be like, I don't know, I have no idea what, maybe all these people are wrong. But to be honest with you, like right when the COVID stuff started happening, what's one of the things we talked about at this show was like, hey, just take it easy. People are probably trying their best, but like they're fallible. And there was a couple examples around, like in the 1950s, they'd say pregnant ladies, hey, go ahead and have a menthol cigarette if you're having some,
digestion problems.
Yeah. Right. And so like humans, I don't. There's some mustache twisting in different places for sure, but like vast majority of people are doing their best and they're trusting people around them.
Yeah.
And so, but like if the COVID stuff showed me anything, like the more stuff they kind of study and find out, we're like, well, a lot of the things that people were saying were like, hey, we might be overreacting. We were overreacting, and the dangers of some of the things were like, yeah, that actually was pretty dangerous. And like I don't even particularly have a problem with. We talked about at the time that like, I don't know, like you just wait it out. If you think you got a better shot, go ahead. Seems fine to me. I don't really care whether you took the vaccine or not. But the point being is that like there's a measure of human fallibility that like you don't find out till like 50 years later. Like
always.
The world was flat until it wasn't. Right? We had new moons until we figured out it was the same moon. And like these are kind of monumental shifts in how we understand things. And so like the notion of human consensus on
Is that
what
why we called it the new moon?
Yeah.
I had no idea. Because we thought it was regenerating a different moon every time?
Right. If you believed that there were plenty of cultures who thought like the gods send the moons.
I'm 43 years old.
Didn't we talk about this on Sunday?
Yeah.
Man.
Get out of the garden, fellas.
2 dudes and a moon.
So, but like the point being is that like the more I like
I'm flabbergasted.
Yeah, I understand.
All right.
The more you dig into some of the stuff, like there's what feels like an arrogance is like oftentimes more just a realization that humans don't actually know their own surroundings as best as they can. As impressive as I think a lot of people are and what they can tell me, like we're still making weird decisions in medical procedures, right? Like bless the smartest brain surgeon in the world. Sometimes like even those guys are going, I don't, maybe this is going to work. I don't know.
Does it?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And like, again, humans trying their best. And I can be perfectly okay with this. I don't have a problem with this at all. But like, I have less of an issue being a minority or not of consensus in things that humans seem to mostly be okay with. Where like, yeah, most humans agree. I'm like, most humans agreed on all kinds of weird things. But that gets me back to that thing you were talking about earlier. Maybe this was before the show, but it was like, you know, there was a plurality of humans at some point who go, Zeus is real.
Yeah.
And then I think to myself, like, I don't know, could that be me? Because I mean, they wholeheartedly believed in Zeus at some point, and all the evidence pointed to it, and like no one believes in Zeus anymore. And so
He fell way out of favor.
right, am I the flavor of the month following Jesus? Like it's a question, and I think we're not being fair if you're not. You should
Willing
be
to
thinking
ask
about
it.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're going over in sociology right now, ethnocentrism, which is like looking at things from a different point of view instead of your own point. And I can really see how that relates to that. Just like thinking where you're at in life and where culture is around you, how that can affect how you think and such.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. One of the most interesting, well, it's not the most interesting thing, that's overselling it. But like, if you get like Bible commentaries from different parts of the world, like they have different inputs.
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot of pages spilt in Western cultures around the destruction of the Amalekites.
Yeah.
And the Canaan, like into the land of Canaan. People who are like from oppressed cultures, so like Russian commentaries and parts of Africa and stuff, they love it.
They're like, finally.
They're not doing apologetics against it. They're like, yes. Like God is finally stepping in and providing a space against all this evil oppression that surrounded them. Like they don't feel the need to defend God. They're finding ways to celebrate the destruction of the Canaanites and the Amalekites.
Yeah.
And so like, but it depends on your background. It depends so it's actually not even wise to just take in even your view of what are the scriptures trying to tell me, primarily from most of your the commentary thought is from Germany. Has been for the last 200 years. Like everything's a flavor of something a German said 150 years ago. And there's something not healthy about that because like you can get blinded by some of the norms and mores of your own culture. And this is why you can go to Ethiopia or different parts of Africa and stuff. And like Jesus is black and not just Middle Eastern. I mean, He's stolen ebony because we see our and I actually think that's totally righteous. I think we see ourselves in our Savior. One, it's known, but two, like there's something relational about that, right? Like I can see him in that, and like obviously he was a mix, right?
He was Middle Eastern.
He was Middle Eastern for sure. Yeah. But like I don't think Jesus is particularly upset. He's like, oh, they didn't get my skin tone right in Ethiopia. I think he could probably care less. I worry more from a Western perspective because we don't just take the skin tone, we pass the mores of the Western society on it. But anyway, long story short, I just think it's the more those things are pressed, the more I'm okay being an informed outlier on human confidence. Because I think there is sometimes an arrogance in our belief that we've got it all figured out, where if you were to track major things that humanity believed over the last 8,000 years, like we believe some wacky stuff that we're like, how could we believe that? Well, most people did at that moment.
Yeah, I'll have to tell you sometime, as part of a funny, I took a CPR class recently, and they took a page out of the 1925 electrician's handbook on how to give CPR.
Oh, gosh.
It basically said, hey, if he's passed out, someone's got to stick a thumb in his butt. Like,
oh, no.
If that doesn't revive him, nothing will.
Oh, no.
And they had like two guys flapping his arms. So like if you were really in the straits of the 1920s and you shocked yourself and they thought they had to give you CPR, you would walk into a room finding two guys flapping your arms independently.
Like pumping them.
With another guy right in the keister. And they're like, look, man, if he don't revive after this, we've lost him.
Dead.
Even now, like they don't do mouth to mouth at all anymore. Like that doesn't exist.
I think that's crazy.
Yeah.
We were all for that 30 years ago. Like we're
I know,
all
right?
in.
Yeah, it's out now.
I wouldn't know, but
I think they're saying that like as you pump the chest, you automatically take a breath. They're not as worried about it. Like you're not getting the full Monty, but you're pretty good, you know? Yeah. And so they're like, and it's better than the risk of the transmission or the COVID or what all the stuffs.
Yeah.
And so like, here's the situation.
You saved his life, but he gave him COVID.
If I was actually in that situation, I'd throw the breaths in. I don't care what they say. How can that be bad? You know?
Yeah.
Okay. You ready? We got to get a couple questions.
Yeah, let's do it.
Dear Live from the Path, my husband and I are the parents of 3 grown sons. Our middle son, call him Kurt, is age 29, has been in conflict with his younger brother Jared, age 26, for more than a year. Kurt started doing stand-up comedy, but still works a day job to pay his bills. Jared now has also started doing comedy. We suspect the disagreement started well before they did stand-up comedy, but now there is name-calling, and both refuse to be in the same room as each other. Kurt has not attended a family gathering where Jared is in attendance for more than a year. Recently, Kurt said he would attend our holiday and could be civil, but now Jared says he won't be in the same room with him since they have had no dialogue and the personal attacks were not addressed. He wants Kurt to be held accountable. They did have one joint counseling session. Both found it counterproductive. My sons are adults and we can't tell them how to live their life. Kurt wants Jared to quit comedy because he feels it's an invasion of his life as well as his friend circle. Kurt has said mean things to these shared friends. Jared has apologized to Kurt for his past behavior, which included excessive drinking and other destructive activities. As you can imagine, we don't find any of this funny. We, as parents, don't know how to handle this. Your advice is greatly appreciated. I'm going to tell you right now, you need to rephrase how you're looking at this. You should have started out the whole thing with, I have 2 unemployed sons.
Oh, gosh.
Both of them believe that they're funny in a way of which apparently they're not, or they're struggling in a way. But they're both part-time joke makers who are fighting with each other and are petty and small about, it appears to be just about every interaction they have. Like 26 and 29, like we're not talking like 8 and 9. Like these are 2 grown dudes.
I don't understand what does the comedy have to do with anything? Is the fight over a comedy?
This sounds like a setup for a comedy.
Yeah.
Actually, it does. Like a sitcom.
Really?
But yeah, she didn't actually say how the conflict has arisen. But it appears that Kurt is mad at Jared because Jared is also now a stand-up comedian. And basically Kurt's like, that was kind of my thing. These were my friends. And now you show up doing your comedy bits of bobbity-ba and then trying to encircle all my friends.
I mean, okay. So Kurt's insecure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's either jealous. Yeah, either he's jealous of insecure or both. I suppose that would be the only reason to be jealous is because you're insecure.
He also has excessive drinking and other destructive activities.
That was the other guy.
No, that's Kurt.
Oh, that's Kurt?
What did Jared... So
Jared
the only thing Jared did wrong was to get into comedy.
Yeah, Jared had to apologize.
Yeah, for his excessive drinking.
No, stop.
Yes, he's
Jared
drunk.
had to apologize because he encircled on Kurt's friends.
And he's a slugger.
And joined and became comedy second.
He's a drunken gambler.
Kurt had to apologize because of his excessive drinking and other destructive behaviors. No details that said actually that those fell on Jared, but Kurt had wild times.
Okay, so let's ignore. I don't care about the comedy. Just ignore it, and let's just say, look, you got 2 kids who are fighting,
Grown kids,
and they can't seem to reconcile. And as a parent, you're like, I want my sons to get along, or at least be civil and come to the family occasions.
Yeah.
So what's your advice?
I mean, you can't. I got 2 children around the same age, and if they were having an issue, it'd be like, you guys just got to work this out.
Yeah.
I mean, we'll have the invitation. Here's our meal. Here's our plan. Here's our whatever we're doing, and there's nothing you can do. They've got to work it out. You can't do it.
Yeah.
what if they don't show up, Dan? What do you do? I'm like, do you call? I feel like I'd be like, your mother deserves better than this. You.
I mean, yeah, I'd have conversations with them, but it's like I don't think I'd cater to them. I don't say, well, we'll just have 2 Christmases.
Oh yeah, right.
I'd be like, hey, here's what we're doing. You guys work this out. We'll help mediate if you will let us. But at some point they got to start acting like adults. And get this together. There's something wrong in the foundation there that they're letting their future go to waste because of whatever's going on right now. They need to get that in order. But
Yeah.
that's a lot of private conversations, I suppose, between both of them and trying to work them together. But
I'm assuming it's the mom that wrote this in. I don't know. This seems so petty.
Yeah.
Whatever it is,
leverage.
it seems so petty.
Like, we're gonna make you go to bed early. You're gonna take your phone away. If they were teenagers, that'd be great. But it's like they're all adults.
Yeah, actually, I do think that's an important distinction that Dan has made, and I think this probably happens earlier in children's lives than most parents would want to admit, myself included. Like, there's a point of which you have almost no authority. Like, you can't make the children do anything. And the more you try to posture like you can, the more you're likely to try to like blow up a longer term relationship. Yeah. Because you can't like, so in this instance, like, you can threaten them and try to guilt them, and like, if they don't want to do it, they're not going to do it, and now you're on the other side of it.
Yeah.
There's a thin line between guilting and truth, right? Because
agreed.
In my opinion, right, it would feel like a guilt trip, but the truth is like, this is affecting me because you're making your mother sad.
Yeah.
This is why I care about this. If you two want to just like scratch and moan and act like a couple of doofuses out on your own, like, as your dad, I would be like, you guys are idiots. But like, your mom and I are holding Thanksgiving one day a year. Please come. But if you're not going to come, I'm like, we're not doing two.
Yes.
We're not moving it. But you're breaking your mom's heart. So you better.
I think that's fine. And like I don't consider. I think we misuse or maybe misthink about guilt. Like, sometimes guilt is totally righteous. Like, you should feel guilty for things that you're doing. And like, just because you
stupid.
Yeah, exactly. Just because you said a thing that caused someone to feel guilty doesn't mean you guilt tripped them.
Yeah.
You just said a thing. Now, if you tried to up the consequences, or like, I think belabor the point, like hyper emotionalize it, I think that's probably not in your best interest, because like, you will lose that, because like, people who are being super stubborn don't just stop being stubborn. They tend to get pushed higher. And so I do think you got to be a little bit careful that you don't. I think this gets a little bit to what Dan was talking about, but like, you don't allow a short-term problem to become a 2-year issue to be a 30-year issue. Yeah. Right? Because like, people get so embarrassed for having to repent and turn back from something that they'll hold on to it. Yeah. And so I think you don't have to bring the fire into that thing, but I do agree. I think it's perfectly fine to say, look, we're not catering to this immaturity. Yeah. And so you really need to work it out. Let me know if I can help you get it worked out. I think that's totally fine.
Simon, you got anything to add to that?
Actually, yes. I think so. One time, my cousin, my brother, and my sister and I were all arguing. Like, we were all in the craps. Not in the craps yet. It wasn't a good time for any of us. And genuinely, my aunt just got us all together in one room and made us all talk to each other and tell us what was bothering us and why it was bothering us. And in the end, we didn't even remember what was bothering us. We just needed to talk and get it out of each other and know how to act around each other instead of just being mad, and just shake hands, give each other a hug, and say, like, I forgive you, or something like that.
I don't know how this drug on this long.
Yeah, exactly. It's ridiculous to have something drag on for so long.
Maybe they would be relieved for the fact that like they don't know how to stop the fight they got in. And like, old dad just steps in and goes, you're both meeting me here. This will end today. Yeah. Let's sit down. Yeah.
Talk it out and just get it over with.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing, is that if two people want to, like, it just takes one person actually to solve this. Both don't have to come to some like complete like repentance. If one dude said, you know what, I'm going to stop doing comedy in your city or whatever. Like, or I'll give up. Like, if it's our relationship or comedy, I choose us. And so I'll bow out of it. Yeah. Like, you could give it a shot and mean it. Like, you better mean it. And then, maybe the guy goes, like, it basically, people function well if you give them an out. Like, you can either hard force them, you can hard punch them through the wall, or you can open up the escrow window that they didn't see coming and just give them a chance to bail on their stupid behavior. Yeah. And like, I think one of the key problems and even parents with kids have this issue, spouses will do the same thing to each other, is that like, they get so caught up in like reconciling the prime major point and having it out and like having the whole thing come to reckon. Like, then the only, like, you could find peace by just giving someone an out. Yeah. That allows them to escape from this false thing that they built up. Like, they didn't mean half the stuff, but they got so caught up in defending themselves that they will fight it to the death. But just be the bigger person, give them a small escape, and it will snowball. And then they'll apologize, and like, stuff will get itself worked out. And so, but sometimes we get a little bit high horse-ish on, I cannot let this stand. Oh, sure you can. Sure you can. It'll get worked out. Like, we got a long time to be in relationship with people who are close to us. Like, almost very few things require Custer's last battle here.
Yeah.
Just let people have an out. Let them calm down. Let them come back 3 days later, 3 weeks later. It's going to be fine. You can't go on these peaks and valleys in these relationships. And so just be the bigger person. Like, it's going to feel like you're giving something up. You're not. You're providing a path to eventual peace, and eventual peace is just fine. You don't have to have it right there in that moment, fully taken in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Secular says, you can't fix this.
Yes, Ken.
Your sons are adults and will have to reach a detente on their own.
What's that?
Detente.
Teton?
Detente.
Is that like an end or something?
Detente.
Yeah. Yeah. Isn't detente? Yeah, it's an ending.
I was in a handball league when I was in college, and that's
Continue to invite both
that was
of your
my
sons.
nickname. They called me the Detente.
To continue to invite both of your sons to family gatherings and hope that eventually Jared will mellow. She puts it all on Jared.
Oh.
Comedy is a tough field. May the best comedian be left standing. Yeah. Try to make peace, but then battle it out. Solid advice.
I was also in a co-ed sand volleyball league, and my nickname was Kurt.
All right, listen.
I really identify with this story.
Hey, we're on a clock. We're going to do one more, and then we've got to cut a trail.
Simon keeps telling jokes.
No, it's time for Mike to go to bed. Dear Life from the Path, I've had a house cleaner helping me take care of my home for the last 30 years.
Yep.
Wow, it's the same person. She comes sometimes every week, sometimes every other week. She works part-time in another job, and we work around her schedule. When I retired 5 years ago and the pandemic began, I was sitting full-time for my grandkids. Everyone is in school now, and I think I would like to clean the house myself. I enjoy cleaning, but I welcomed the help when I was working full-time with my kids and then grandkids. My house cleaner and I are friendly and visit when she's here. I'm wondering how to go about ending this relationship, as well as what I owe her for her loyalty and help.
30 years is a long time.
30 years is a long time.
Long time.
Is it a friend? Is it really a friend at this point? Or is it...
I mean, they say they get together and hang out while she's cleaning, though, so.
Yeah. It's like talking to the guy in the drive-thru. He's not your buddy.
I don't know.
I mean, everybody knows it's going to end sometime. Just say, hey, guess what? I'm retired.
Hospice Dan
So what
return.
I mean,
What were you thinking? You were going to live here forever? Stupid housekeeper.
I mean,
I'd give them, like, a larger sum of money, of course. Just, like, it's a little bit of a surprise, I'd feel like. 30 years, and then all of a sudden, hey, I don't like this anymore. See ya.
Don't you feel like you give her a little bit of heads up?
give her a heads
Yeah,
up.
heads up,
6 months
absolutely.
Or something, or, I mean, give them time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Verna, I feel like the things are changing. I might take on this house myself. How do you feel like we do this maybe another month? What do you think?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, you cannot do that. You're not very good at cleaning.
Oh, sorry. Why is Verna some sort of
I don't know.
Indian
I meant to
immigrant?
do it in just a regular voice and it came out salty. I
Boy,
apologize.
that is, yeah, that's offensive.
Sorry.
Wait a minute. No, let's get back to Simeon's suggestion, though. Is it possible that a slightly enhanced sum would feel insulting?
Ooh. Good point. I didn't
Right.
think about
You're
that.
definitely the help.
Yeah.
You're not the friend.
Yeah. It's a tricky walk because you want to show your. I would go with not money. I would go with like something that is not your normal business exchange,
Like a gift.
like a nice card and a flowers or something.
a cruise.
Flowers?
A new car.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah.
What about like a necklace? Like a nice
necklace.
gift. Flowers, that's it? 30
New
years?
broom.
Lots
A
of
necklace
flowers.
feels really relational.
1 year for every one flower for every year. 30 roses.
Oh.
That's a lot of money.
Roses are expensive.
Yeah, Dan already fired this woman. What'd you think you were going to live here?
I give her time.
Get out.
Our contract is ending.
Once this last rose dies.
Right. Your mail isn't sitting here, Laverne.
Yeah, I would this realistically, I would do the flowers. I would do a nice note.
Yeah.
I would give her plenty, like probably a good few months of a heads up.
Mm-hmm.
And then depending on how close you are, I might say, you know, look, I know our cleaning arrangement has stopped, but like my door is still open to you anytime you want to
Yeah.
stop by. I don't want to presume that you will. I know this is your work.
Yeah.
But just know that like I still care
Or
about
we
you.
could meet out in the world.
Like
So
let
it
me.
doesn't look like you're an employer all
Yeah.
the time. Like, you want to go to get coffee sometime?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm curious if the cleaner has like other shindigs or it's just this house.
It does say it's part-time.
Part-time, yeah.
Oh, that is kind of worse.
Yeah. Because if it's just this house and this is the only way she's getting paid, that's...
Yeah, she works part-time at another job, and we work around her schedule. So
Okay.
But she agreed to that. I mean, she wasn't like sitting there hoping she'd go full-time someday. I mean...
How old is this woman?
And she's been able to,
it's been
to
30
live off
years.
this arrangement for 30 years. Like, there's no way she could look at it and go, oh, I've been hosed.
Right.
Like,
I thought this was my time.
yeah. Yeah, like I do podcast work on the side, like some podcast editing and stuff for Philip Ramsey, who was on the show from the Uncommon Wealth Partners, and like he's the only guy I do that for. And if he tomorrow called and said, "Hey, look, I'm going to do this myself, or I'm getting out of the podcast thing," like I have no, he's still my friend, and I'm glad I did the work for him, but I'm not mad or anything. I'm like, well, I mean, he's stopped doing it, like, or wants to do it himself. I'm perfectly cool with that.
Okay,
like,
so you're sticking with flowers.
Yeah, flowers.
Dan kicked her out already. Ben offers flowers as a gift.
I gave her a 6-month notice.
Yeah, 6 months. I said 2. Dan was more generous.
No, that's true. And Simeon, what's your final gambit?
I like the rose idea, I'm not going to lie.
Unbelievable.
I'd give her a deck of Life in the Path playing cards.
Here's the Uno deck.
Yeah.
Reversal.
Or $40 in chips to the local Indian casino.
We're like fine wine.
Yeah. Yeah, a nice bottle of, I don't know, wines.
Yeah,
okay, here we go.
She's probably an alcoholic.
Stop it. Secular says, talk to your housekeeper and explain to her what you were thinking. Offer her several months' salary.
What?
Dan goes, excuse me.
Is that the sound of me being right? Simeon says send her on a bender.
Then, instead of cutting her off completely, ask if she would come to you once a month to catch any spots you miss, as well as to visit. After doing the house cleaning for a month or so, you may find it isn't as enjoyable as you remembered, and then increase the women's visits if she is still available. Good housekeepers are hard to find. She may be busy.
It doesn't sound like she's busy.
Secular is basically saying, look, you're not cut out for housework. You should keep this gal on the line.
Yeah, I mean, this is a real optimistic path. Like, as opposed to dealing with the hard thing of separating your employment from this person, it's like, well, maybe you'll actually hire her back. So let's go with that route.
I feel like you couldn't hire her back after that.
No.
30 years and then no.
Well, you couldn't hire another one. Let's say you found out a month in that you should have kept her. You can't replace her.
Yeah.
Ooh, awkward.
Yeah.
Imagine
You
she
better be
found
real
out.
sure about this.
Yeah.
I want to know what she'd living in. I mean, does she have like a 4-story house filled with like porcelain dolls that need to be dusted? Or is it like just some little old lady in an apartment? I mean, those are two different things.
30 years of housekeeping. I mean, I feel like
I would
you
assume
got
the
a
kids
little.
are all gone.
Yeah, but you feel like you came from a little bit of cashola.
I suppose.
What would be the equivalent? I wouldn't pay someone to clean my house probably, but like let's say you paid someone to mow the grass.
Yeah.
And after 30 years, you were like, all right.
There's a bush.
Yeah, all right, Ted.
Here's a bunch of grass clippings.
I dug up a tuft of lawn. Take it with you. My sod for you.
Rose bush. You can have continual roses.
Oh, gosh.
Okay. All right. Hey, you're listening to Live from the
I
Path.
think the roses are cheap, by the way. I feel several months' salary is too much, but the roses, that feels cheap.
How many would I have to buy for it not to be cheap?
I think the flowers is the wrong.
Okay,
one.
what if it was something longer than that? Like it was like a bonsai tree or something, like something that would.
Bonsai tree.
That's what I'm saying. Something that would hang around for a while,
No, I don't like that.
like a lavender plant.
No,
30 lavender plants.
no, I think a gift.
Oh.
I think I think a bit of jewelry would still
Company
the right
watch.
move.
What?
I feel like jewelry still feels too relational. Like,
You've known this person for 30 years. They're at your house. They've seen your unmentionables. Well, I think you're in relationship with them.
okay, but like, would you give the cashier at Casey's a necklace?
For 30 years,
Yeah, you saw him every day.
they've been selling me Bronsons and donuts for 30 years.
Yeah.
I'm like, Chuck, here's a wristwatch.
Yeah, like
actually.
like a nice one, or something from a catalog. Like that looks like it might be worth $300, but really it's 30. Like from the Temu. Give him a Temu watch.
No, a nice catalog.
Hey, with the tariff, I mean that's a nice gift.
I mean, you shouldn't spend more than a couple $100 on this thing.
$200.
30 years this woman has been cleaning your poo.
Okay, what if she's a gold person and you got the silver?
Stop it. All of a sudden she becomes like, well, I would accept this gift, but I am a gold person.
Hey, I don't really like this. Can you
This
take
is
it
ridiculous.
back?
Right,
Can
you-
I get a different one?
You put her in a real awkward position.
You got no class. This is why you would never have a housekeeper.
Oh, God.
What if I said
You're like a barn door of a man.
What if I said I made a list of 15 things in my house you can pick for one of them?
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. Now she's got 2 husbands. No. Get a classy. I'm gonna have to ask my wife about this. I'm probably way off base, but I feel like a classy. I don't know, pendant or something. I don't know. I shouldn't be asked. But flowers is too cheap. I know that.
What about a commemorative 50-cent piece from the year of her birth?
Oh boy. I'll tell you all about coins.
Is that a Sacagawea dollar?
Yeah, for your inner numismatist.
From Indiana?
Okay, look, you're listening to Live from the Path. Here's what I would expect you to do on the old Live from the Path complaint line. First, the number is 515-517-0085. Call or text 515-517-0085. And you got a couple things you can tell us. One, like, did we miss a midlife faith crisis? Like, what are the things, either this could be true for you, and maybe it's a cathartic thing to leave up on the old voicemail or text exchange, or just something you've seen. You're like, hey, this is the type of thing that throws off people who got a little ways in and then didn't realize there might be an alligator in the pool. Second thing, I feel like we didn't come to a great conclusion on what to give this house cleaner. And so
I think we did.
No, it's not.
Here. Gold-plated roses.
Okay.
Me in the middle.
Like gilded flowers.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
This is the worst of a peacemaking effort I've ever heard.
Yeah.
Sign a treaty.
The roses would wither within the plating, and then you have a hollow shell of what your relationship used to be.
Yeah. Simeon says, let's build a playground on the border of Gaza. And like, there. Just everyone go down the slide together. You first, Turban. Anyway, help us out here. 515-517-0085. Call or text.
Gold-plated roses. Ridiculous.
What should you give the 30-year house cleaner who you're cutting ties with? Something that makes her feel like Pretty Woman.
Okay.
Like a prostitute domestic. Or something that...
Here's a box of cigars. Thank you.
Wait, did it specifically say that it was a girl who was cleaning it?
No.
It's not. You think it's a garden Earl? Okay, we got to get out of here. Anyway, just hit us up, Live from the Faith complaint line. I think we'll be back here next week. We'll see how the dice rolls. In the meantime, be faithful in means. God will handle the ends. You've been listening to Live from the Path.